A wish is a heart your dream makes when you're fast asleep.
100 years in the making. The grand achievement of one of the greatest entertainment giants in our modern history. The Walt Disney Animation Studios. A studio that has revolutionized the art form that we call animation, creating artistic frames one by one and then playing them in a conveyor of imagery in motion to tell fascinating stories. This discipline was established by Walt Disney, and his creative innovation had inspired many people all across the world to follow in his footsteps and to create artworks of their own. Walt Disney had laid out the foundations of a great art form known as animation, taking individual artistic frames one by one and then playing them in sequence in a conveyor belt of imagery that all combines into one to create the illusion of motion. Many American artists, and then many artists across the globe, would be inspired by what Walt Disney had innovated. Years would go by, and Walt Disney's utopian vision would come to reality. His motto of dreams coming true would certainly come to light. And over the years, Walt Disney placed an emphasis on wishing upon a star as the main motif of his company and many of the films that came with it. And so, after so many years of artistic innovation, after so many years of creating so many beloved family classics, after so many years of hardships and creative achievements, after 10 whole decades of one of the greatest entertainment giants in modern Hollywood, their 100th anniversary achievement is here, and it's...
Meh. 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 A heart is a wish your dream makes. Asleep when you're fast.
So, as you can tell, I recently went to see Disney's latest animated film called Wish. Myself and others have been very critical towards the Disney company for their corporate pandering maneuvers they've been having, especially in the last several years or so. And the reason why we're so harsh towards Disney is because we love them so much. All of us watching this have some fond memories of Disney. Even the most cynical of my viewers would probably agree that there's at least one thing or several things about Disney that they absolutely love to the bottom of their hearts. Whether it be something like the Pirates of the Caribbean franchise, or the times when Disney actually took some chances with films like The Hunchback of Notre Dame, Fantasia 2000, of Treasure Planet, Atlantis, so on and so forth.
In usual dreams, your heartache.
Or perhaps there are just such beloved family classics that people can still quote to this day, Lilo and Stitch, and The Lion King, and Beauty and the Beast, and the fact that people could go back to the classics and actually find some essential psychological themes that make for stable societies, as analyzed by people like Jordan Peterson and my good friend Malika Ganji. So, we still hold classic Disney in high regard, but as for modern Disney, people have been highly critical of what they've been doing these days with how much they pander. So, they released trailers for their 100th anniversary project, Wish. And given the animation industry's recent ambition to do stylized animation, this caught my interest.
You wish for, you keep whatever. Take hold of your day and some dream that shining rainbow will come through.
This artwork has made for some really profound abstract visuals over the years. And so we've seen this recent trend with the likes of Tron Uprising, the Into the Spider-Verse series, Puss in Boots: The Last Wish, and Wish, where they start to combine elements of traditional drawn animation as well as CGI animation. There's certainly benefits to the different forms of animation, such as the traditionally drawn animation with pen and ink and stuff like that, or in digitized form, or in stop motion where you use real objects and take individual photos at a time to portray the illusion of motion. Or it could be CGI, in which you use the technology which dates back to World War II aircrafts and use that to convey a different form of stop motion. And this kind of fusion, if you will, between traditional animation and CGI animation is exactly what Wish is trying to go for, because that way it harkens back to the classic traditional animation, which a lot of people still appreciate and even want the company to go back to, as well as the recent CGI that Disney has been implementing these days, going as far back as Tangled. Now, right off the bat, having seen the film and seen this animation style, it's got a pleasant charm to it, I must say. It's got a really pleasant watercolor aesthetic to it. Like, all the backdrops have this nice painterly look. The characters have this impression that someone had just taken the time to use delicate little brush strokes to portray them. It's a really pleasant thing to look at, but at the same time, it just looks unfinished. The mouths kind of stretch a little bit too much. I mean, of course, with the villain character, that can be somewhat justified, but even then, his mouth tends to be a slightly exaggerated, and I know it sounds odd for me to say, to critique animation for these exaggerations, because animation is known for exaggerating. Like, they've set the trend on widening the eyes so that you can get into the emotion of the character, but here the exaggeration just looks a tad bit distracting, especially with the style they're trying to go for. So I can see what they're trying to do, but it seems unfinished. And you know what? What I've just described about the animation style could be a great summary of this film as a whole. It looks pleasant, but it just seems unfinished, and it has its rough edges.
No matter how your aching heart is, if you believing, keep on. I wish that you dream.
So, yeah, the whole thing just kind of comes across as some corporatized, safe kind of thing that Disney is trying to do. And it seems kind of a shame, because Disney is a company that's been known for creative innovation. And Disney has seemed to sacrifice that in the name of appeasing to as broad an audience as possible, in the name of people-pleasing. And in many ways, this film is all about people-pleasing. And people-pleasing seems good on the surface, but trust me, people-pleasing does not work. What is the story all about? The story of Wish is set in a fairy tale kingdom, not too far off from what we've seen before from the likes of Snow White, Cinderella. In fact, something I will give this film credit for, being a 100th anniversary film, is the fact that the opening titles are literally in the style of what you'd see in the classic Snow White, Cinderella films. So that's very clever. They even have the storybook opening, of course. So this storybook fairy tale setting, as it were, probably a little bit more ominous than other storybook stories that if you actually understand some of the implications. But anyway, we'll just talk about the story as is. The story is set in this kingdom set in the Mediterranean. Ooh, the Mediterranean. I love the Mediterranean food. It tells the story of this Mediterranean kingdom run by the sorcerer who names himself Magnifico. I think that was his name. Was it Maestro or Magnifico? I think it was Magnifico. He has noticed that life can be very unfair sometimes. So the sorcerer gets into, studying sorcery and magic and stuff like that in an attempt to build an empire based on making people's wishes come true. He has this ceremony where he takes the deepest wishes from individuals and places the magic so that people forget what their wishes were, and he keeps them. And then during another different ceremony, he will grant people different wishes. And he's able to do this in such a way in which the kingdom can prosper. And one of the kingdom's biggest advocates is our main protagonist, named Asha. She's quite an idealistic young woman, and on this particular day in which the story begins, her grandfather has turned 100 years old. Do you see where this is going, kids? Asha's grandfather would like to have his wish come true, so Asha gets the opportunity to become, get this, the sorcerer's apprentice. And no, Asha does not fool around with shortcuts involving broomsticks here. And keep note that this film makes plenty of references to past Disney films. It just can't help itself. So, Asha's getting herself ready, and she's hanging out with her friends who I completely forgotten their names, but I'm just going to call them the Seven Dwarves. Because if you actually pay attention to their color palette and their personalities, they're literally based on the Seven Dwarves from Snow White and the Seven Dwarves. It's kind of overt in that way. Also, there's a sleepy white guy who is a bit saddened that his dream and his wish didn't get paid attention to. Keep note on that, I'll bring it up later. So anyway, Asha meets the queen, and Asha gets the opportunity to meet the sorcerer for a job interview, as it were. It is here that the sorcerer reveals where he stores the wishes that he collects from the citizens. Asha's in awe and wonder at this until he notices something very peculiar about the sorcerer's behaviors. He doesn't grant everyone's wishes. Oh, shock. Why doesn't the sorcerer grant everyone's wishes? The sorcerer maestro seems very hesitant to respond, which leads to Asha being very suspicious of the sorcerer's behavior. And it's implied that the sorcerer is storing people's wishes away in order to maintain power, and not to feed some ideas of rebellion into people's heads. The sorcerer Magnifico goes through his motions of the wish ceremony, and Asha seems disheartened by this whole thing. She runs off, has her musical moment of wanting more than this. See the line where the sky meets the sea and it calls me, but no one knows how far it goes.
True come will. In dreams you will lose your heartache. In dreams I can hear your name.
I want adventure in the great white somewhere, and so on and so forth. She makes a wish upon a star, as is the Disney motif, and lo and behold, the star,
when you star upon a wish,
falls down onto the earth. And to make things more interesting, the star, for the purpose of this movie, apparently takes the form of a Luma from Super Mario Brothers Galaxy. It's not called Super Mario Brothers Galaxy, it's just called Super Mario Galaxy. I have Super Mario Galaxy 2, I admit I have not played the first Super Mario Galaxy game. Not to the fool. So yes, that did mean I have to earn Rosalina the hard way on Mario Kart Wii. Anyway, this cute wee Luma has this habit of miraculously doing things like making animals talk, including Asha's goat sidekick talk. I'll talk about that later. The Luma also has a habit of making plant life talk and come to life, and the little Luma has these sparkle things that could do all kinds of wondrous stuff.
No extreme is to request.
And so Asha has the idea on teaming up with the Star and her talking goat friend to sneak into Magnifico's castle.
Anything your desires heart, will you too come?
And unleash all the wishes onto all the citizens so that all of them can have their dreams come true. So there's a series of mishaps, and to make a long story short, there's some obstacles that get in the way, and Magnifico starts to get rather nervous about the implications of his own kingdom rebelling against him, so he reverts to even more darker forms of magic, in which he becomes more overtly as a villain, and Chris Pine seems to have the time of his life voicing a Disney villain. And Asha and her 7 dwarf friends, yes, I'm calling them 7 dwarfs because that's what they are, they team up with the Luma to unleash all of the wishes until there's a few other things that happen. Namely,
if your dream is in your heart.
Sadly, during this whole story, Asha and her friends get betrayed by one particular character. Now, given the reputation of modern corporate Disney, I'm going to give you, my faithful viewer, at least 10 seconds to make a wild guess as to what color of skin and what gender this traitorous character is. Time's up. You guessed correctly. It was a white male character who betrayed Asha and her friends. It was the white man all along. And the worst part is, he teamed up with the patriarchy. That's pretty much what happened. Oh, modern Disney, you have gotten so hilariously predictable.
There's the Tasmanian devil. There's Taz wearing the Superman costume. That's very Warner Brothers-y.
So, they have to adjust for the evils of the white man. Oh my days. Okay, I suppose to be fair, this film isn't too overt with the message in regards to its progressive values, but still, there's just these undertones that the smarter people will pick up on and think, there's something fishy going on here.
100th anniversary of Warner Brothers. Unfortunately, Warner Brothers isn't getting as much attention as Disney right now, because Disney seems to be going extra hard on the fact that it's 100 years old. Oh man, what happens if it's the 101st anniversary? You're gonna have 101st anniversary like centered on like the Dalmatians and stuff like that. Oh bother. Oh, will I ever get those pajamas?
So spoiler alert, Asha does manage to get the wishes to every single citizen. To explain how she does it, I'll explain later, but there's a fundamental problem with this film. Asha doesn't grow as a character. She never grows as specifically as a protagonistic character. And that's kind of a shame because Disney princesses and Disney female heroines of the past had some great character arcs in the past. I mean, you had Rapunzel. She started off as fairly naive and fairly scared of the outside world, but grew confidence and eventually managed to overcome her abusive kidnapper. You have other arcs similar to that, like Mulan, who is not as overtly strong as her male peers, yet through sheer determination and her will to protect her father out of love, she manages to persevere to the bitter end.
And there's Stitch.
Even characters like Tiana, whom modern Disney fanatics would put on a pedestal these days, even Tiana has a very specific growth of character. She begins the film with a workaholic spirit, and yet as the film progresses, she learns the necessity to just take a break and have fun and socialize for a bit, and that actually enhances her chances for a more prosperous life.
Yep, that's definitely Disney right there. There's Buzz Lightyear, just hanging out with those socks. Oh, it's a good thing that there's no global economic crisis surrounding these things. Otherwise, this would be even more concerning. We need to keep these people accountable.
So all these characters grow in fundamental ways while still staying true to the ambitions of their core goals. Like with Tiana, she stays true to her goal of opening up a restaurant, and she still has room to grow as a character. Mulan is trying to protect her father, and she still grows as a character through the war experience. You know, I could name so many of the character arcs that all these characters go through. I can't name any kind of arc that Asha goes through other than Viva la Revolution! Which is very telling of modern Disney's sort of Marxist propaganda these days. And it's a shame because I look at Asha and she does seem to have potential to have a character who's willing to grow, but the film never really provides any obstacles. Well, I mean, the film does provide obstacles, but the film never really provides any character-based obstacles or any counter-arguments to counter and to challenge Asha's core values and who she is as a person. She starts off as an idealistic woman who wants to get everyone's wishes come true, and she remains that way. And there isn't really much to her other than that. Like, for example, the whole premise of this film is that everyone ought to have their wishes and dreams fulfilled.
There it is. There's Stitch, our beloved alien who found redemption. Talk about a guardian angel. Hey, Lilo.
Ugh. You see, I would recommend Puss in Boots: The Last Wish as a far better alternative for a stylized animated wishing star based movie. Because unlike Wish, this story actually has a plot and thematics that actually challenge our main character and make him question if this goal is worth pursuing. We don't get that with Asha.
There it is. There it is. She looks a little fatter here. Am I the only one who thinks she looks just slightly fatter here? Yeah, very strange look, isn't it? Well, they're definitely going all in this.
Like, her goal is to satisfy and fulfill the wishes of everyone in the kingdom, but there's never really a counter-argument to make her character grow in a profound way. Such as, with questions such as, what if everyone doesn't deserve to have their wishes fulfilled? What if some wishes are actually bad to fulfill? I think Puss in Boots: The Last Wish delved into that topic far better, just with the existence of the character Jack Horner, who had a very horrible wish of obtaining all the power for himself, for his selfish indulgence, simply because he is a spoiled narcissistic brat. That kind of wish is clearly and, of course, comedically portrayed as absolutely horrific. And yet it serves the point of the plot that not every wish is worth fulfilling. So I know the kingdom that Wish is set in is portrayed as a kingdom full of well-intended and meaningful people, but I'm sorry, Disney, you can't sugarcoat reality like this, because not all wishes are worth fulfilling. I mean, what if some wishes aren't always fulfilled, not because of some selfish dictating ruler, but because of a necessary growth in character? Like, for example, say I had a child, and that child wanted a mountain's worth of candy floss. If that wish wasn't granted to him, Would that be cruel? Or would that be out of protection in case he goes on a sugar rush from so much candy floss influence? You see what I mean? Just because people yearn for a wish, that doesn't necessarily mean it's a good thing by default. And this is something that these ultra-progressives don't really seem to realize. They don't realize the implications that not every wish is worth fulfilling, and that by being hyper-inclusive in this sense, you ultimately start to become degressive in a way. So, speaking of character motivations, Magnifico is portrayed as a character who had a bit of a tragic backstory and had good intentions at first. Of course, good intentions are the pathway that lead to hell, as many people would say. It's kind of a literal case in Magnifico's perceptions. But the film never really explains why Magnifico keeps the wishes for himself, other than to maintain power. But there's no rival kingdoms or any other implied reason to indicate why Magnifico should keep all these wishes. The film just, as far as we're aware from what the film tells us, he just keeps them for the sake of power. But power for what? He's already got the kingdom. What is he trying to protect the citizens from themselves? Is he trying to protect them from some other kingdom? Is he just harboring them for himself just because he's a jerk? The film never really explains it to a fully satisfying manner. And the film, for that matter, also doesn't really take time to develop other characters to a great extent. Honestly, I've completely forgotten the names of most of the characters, hence why I've named Asha's friends the Seven Dwarfs. And although there are some characters I remember, there's a character who's overtly called Peter, and his wish is to fly in the sky, and he's dressed up as Peter Pan. Get it? And he's, at the end of the film, he's teaming up with some other woman, whom I can only assume is called Wendy. Get it? Number?
It's so strange these days. Hey, look, even Grogu's here. Oh man, look at these decorations. I remember getting the Christmas tree decorations. I still have Disney tree decorations. Wow, that decoration looks cool. You got Spider-Man swinging around. Must be a blessing to have superhuman powers. Superhuman powers actually exist, by the way. Blessing.
Anyway, on with the plot description. So, Asha and her friends find a way to get the wishes out there to the people, but Magnifico tricks Asha, and he has formed a dark magical staff which he uses to harbor the wishes, as well as get the Luma into his staff, and then ties everyone down. But then, earlier, the friends and the queen managed to read through the spell book that Magnifico used to find if there was some way to break the spell. I mean, okay, that's kind of a callback to the first Snow White movie, when the evil queen realized that True Love's kiss breaks the spell, and if you actually think about it, True Love's kiss could point to something more divine. However, the solution to how they managed to break the spell, it just feels kind of cheap. It's like musical ex machina. They managed to save the day by literally singing their problems away. Everyone starts to sing in protest, and yeah, we should support this person. I can put one and one together, and that they managed to find a part of the spell book that says you must sing this specific song, or sing in unity and sing in the need to have wishes fulfilled or something like that, in order to counter against this dark magic because music points to the light or something like that. I wish there was a bit more build up to that. In fact, remember that traitor white man character that I mentioned earlier? He doesn't really get much character development other than, oh, I wish I had my dream fulfilled. But then, at the moment of him becoming a traitor, only then is his character more fleshed out with his desire to become a knight, and he becomes desperate to have his wish fulfilled because Magnifico has this way of holding back wishes. There's a severe lack of character development. The film tries to make up for this with some humor. Now, Disney's managed to provide good humor in the past, but most of the humor, with some exceptions, doesn't really work here. I've heard a lot of people got annoyed by the Alan Tudyk talking goat. Although, to be fair, there were at least one or two jokes that actually made me laugh out loud, such as, Lord willing, if you're willing for me to tell the truth, the joke where Asha goes to swim, and then the goat, Valentino, that's his name, and then the Alan Tudyk goat goes into swim with Asha, only right as he dives and he says, "I don't know how to swim!" Splash! it's the way his character and his voice actor portray that line with such utmost confidence as they're diving headfirst into the water that he says he can't swim in. Like, that was really funny. And there is some spectacle that can come from this, and the musical numbers were mostly good. I think people can have a good time listening to the music, because Disney has had a good reputation for making some quality musicals. So the evil sorcerer Magnifico is defeated and sucked into the evil spearhead thing, and then placed into his own smelly dungeon, and everyone's wishes are fulfilled. But again, going back to what I said about wishes being fulfilled, films like Puss in Boots: The Last Wish, a rival film for Disney these days, shows exactly why not everyone's wish is worth fulfilling. And there's a few other overt Disney callbacks being made, and then everyone lives happily ever after, and then the end credits roll, and there's these golden, sparkly, drawn outlines of characters from nearly all the Disney films, from Snow White all the way up to Strange World. Now, as I was watching this, I was thinking, oh, okay, they're giving callbacks to that. But they didn't make mention of some of their collaboration films like Melody Time and Three Amigos, which I can understand. They're focusing more on the more mainstream movies that they made. The only overtly mainstream Disney movie that Disney didn't mention during their end credits sequence was Black Cauldron. Ooh, wouldn't want to be bringing back those memories of the poor box office performance. I can understand. The Black Cauldron was such a box office failure during one of Disney's darkest periods that a Care Bears movie was more financially successful than the Black Cauldron. Ouch. I can understand why they'd leave that out there. But hey, at least Treasure Planet got a mention, as well as Atlantis. So that's neat to see. As well as Hunchback of Notre Dame and some other underrated classics. So I guess it wasn't a complete waste of time. Also, I should note that there is a post-credit sequence where the 100-year-old man, I think his name was Abba or something, Baba? The 100-year-old man, he's looking up at the night sky, he's playing his lute guitar thing, and then he ends with playing When You Wish Upon a Star. I mean, given Disney's reputation, it's portrayed as quite a sweet moment. But looking at this film overall, that sweet moment, it's not really earned compared to Disney's other efforts. This is one of Disney's lesser films. It's a lower Disney film akin to The Black Cauldron, or what many others would say about Home on the Range and Chicken Little. It's the kind of film that has these overt undertones of these progressive narratives, which, for reasons I've already explained, doesn't altogether work. With the classic Disney films, I could go back and see all forms of truth and beauty that point to divine virtues that we need to aspire to in our lives. It's for that reason there are films like Beauty and the Beast and Snow White and other things like that, in which, despite their flaws, they still hold up tremendously well, maybe even far better in today's society. And they could teach us great things about what it means to embrace responsibilities and how to approach life. I mean, these films have profoundly impacted people, and it's even helped people with learning difficulties. Like, Disney is one of the first things that comes to mind when it comes to family entertainment, because Disney, for the vast majority of its runtime, has just been so good at it. But I'm sorry, this film Wish, it's not that good. I will say this. The good news with this film is that it's not completely terrible. Hooray! But the bad news is it's not that good either. And especially for Disney, I expect better. And given the direction Disney's going, maybe they'll be forced to go better. In the meantime, in regards to quality animated stuff, I might as well look forward to Miyazaki's The Boy and the Heron, go back to the vast majority of anime, maybe Leica Studios, Aardman Studios, and then go to DreamWorks movies, the Pixar movies, and the DreamWorks movies, and just watch Puss in Boots: The Last Wish for another time again. As for Disney's Wish, I would give this film a 5.9 out of 12. I would have called it completely mediocre, but there's just certain aspects to it that draw it back from me even giving it the equivalent of a 3 stars. It's just that whilst a lot of it is passable, like the acting, the music, certain aspects of the charming aesthetics, and some parts of the humor, I find that there are even further drawbacks to preventing this film from becoming anything resembling a masterpiece, such as how unfinished the animation looks, the very sloppy plot, the forgettable characters where the humor doesn't quite land, the undertones which can have quite a negative effect if you take them in a certain direction, especially with the people-pleasing narrative. And believe me, people-pleasing may look nice on the surface, but it just doesn't work because in reality, you're never going to satisfy absolutely everyone. And this is a mistake that modern Disney keeps falling into. And I have this to say, you're never going to please everyone. You can't. Because if you try to appeal to absolutely everybody and try to appeal to this person, and try to squeeze in all this inclusivity and this representation for every single possible person, you're in a very specific, extreme way, you're always going to get one response. More representation, more inclusivity, to the point where it gets ridiculously nitpicky. And instead of appealing to people who can find representation in a variety of walks of life, you're instead trying desperately to appeal to these weirdos who are very specific in their very narrow outlook on the world. And honestly, you need to go back to making family movies, not just children's movies. You need to make family movies, Disney. Because here's the thing. With family movies, you make movies not just for the children, but also for adults as well, for grown-up people. You know, family movies, something that everyone can enjoy. The grown-up people can enjoy the more mature aspects and some other aspects that children could overlook, as well as enjoy the same things that the children enjoy as well. So that's inclusivity done right. But in the meantime, Wish was quite the disappointment. But hey, this is modern corporate Disney. You might as well just watch a classic Disney film instead. In fact, I would highly recommend you watch Once Upon a Studio as a better alternative for celebrating the 100th anniversary of Disney instead of this lackluster movie. And, once again, I would highly recommend Puss in Boots: The Last Wish as a far better wishing star-themed movie. But what do you all think of Wish? If you've seen the film, let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comments down below. Maybe we'll have some constructive conversation, and maybe someday, God willing, some people at Disney might actually listen to us. I mean, that's unlikely, but hey, a dream is a wish your heart makes. Disney is a company known for making dreams come true. Maybe I'm being too open-minded, but hey-ho. A guy can dream. A guy can wish. Scott's Thinker signing out.